Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Something in the Wild podcast. I'm Tyler Smith, as always, and today I'm going to be talking about Utah's public land dispute again. I'm going to be talking about some Louisiana fishing buffers, some Oregon's new wildlife management areas, and the right to hunt and fish in Florida. So stay tuned for this episode. It's going to be a good one. But first, I want to talk about my week. And my weekend... Specifically, my weekend was absolutely amazing. Sammy, myself, Connor, we went out to Gettysburg and spent some time out there camping, hunting, hanging around the campfire, and just overall having a good time. And the reason that I say it was so good, not because I got a deer or anything, saw a few bucks, which was good, saw a doe, which was good, but overall, the hunting was a bit frustrating. The reason that I'm saying that it was such a good weekend, simply because we just had so much fun hanging out together. And that's kind of the point of the whole camping thing, the whole spending time outside, the whole hunting thing, is spending time with the people you care about, making memories, and having fun in the process. We took our camper out there. We found a beautiful campsite on this 10, 12 acre plot of land, and it was so private. They had a nice fire pit back there. We were burning a bunch of wood. We were just hanging out around the fire. Had not a lot of sleep both nights, and actually this is like my, excluding last night, this is my third or fourth night in a row only getting like 4 to 5 to 6 hours of sleep. So I am going to try and record this thing as quickly and as efficiently as possible, and then I am going to take a nap. But that was my weekend. It was just awesome. And like I said, it's just not necessarily about getting something, though I was very frustrated in the moment that I could not figure out these deer, couldn't get a buck or even a doe to walk in front of my stand the second night. It definitely is frustrating, but we still had a great time, made some really, really awesome memories, so I'm going to cherish those for a very, very long time. Now, let's get into our episode topics today. First thing we want to talk about here is the Utah public land lawsuit. And I kind of equate this to this whole situation to, say someone is trying to sue you, right? They're trying to sue you and take your property that you might have bought, that you've had for a very long time, maybe it was in the family for a very long time, and they sue you to get it. They end up eventually getting it, and then they sell it to the highest bidder because they can't pay for the management. Well, that's kind of exactly what's going on right now in Utah. And if you want to learn more about this, you can visit BHA's website, and they cover this basically every week because it is such a big topic. But what I really want to talk about here today with you guys is to take some action, to sign. There's a petition that I'm going to have linked below through BHA. Sign it, make your voice heard, because that is how we can make a difference here. We can stop Utah from trying to take this federal land, which is your land. It's everyone. And if you're a resident of this country, it is your land, and you have absolute 100% rights and access to it. So I'm going to post the petition link below. Also, want to implore you guys to reach out to some Utah decision makers. So Spencer Cox, who is the governor, Diedre, Henderson, Lieutenant Governor, Reyes, Attorney General, Mike Schultz, U.S. House of Representatives Speaker, Stuart Adams, Utah State President. Now, I am going to put all of their phone numbers and all of their, I guess, comment links. So you go on there, click the link, you can write your comment, you can write your name, what your concerns are, and some of the talking points that you can bring up are as follows. Yeah, I got just a couple bullet points here. So you can talk about Utah public land belonging to all Americans, which it does. Every American holds an equal claim to our nation's federal public land and water, and it's our responsibility to protect the shared heritage and make sure that does not get passed into the wrong hands. Another point, history has proven before. Utah has done this before. They have sold off state land to pay for the management of that land. So that's another great point. And transferring public lands to state ownership ignores the economic realities of what it takes to manage federal land. I mean, there's millions of acres that they need to be managing. And this has sent states into bankruptcy before, trying to manage this land. So why would we fix something that's not broken? It just doesn't make any sense. So if you aren't a Utah resident, be sure to reach out. But if you are a Utah resident, reach out to your district representatives as well in legislation. They have a little bit of pulling power too. So those are kind of my big points there. Make sure that you are checking that out. Next on the agenda, Louisiana's no fishing buffer may be preventing fish spills. Now, you might be wondering what in the heck a fishing buffer is and what in the heck fish spills are. Well, I didn't know this either until I saw this article come across my feed, and it's pretty interesting to think about. So, basically, what's going on in Louisiana, they just passed, let's take a pause here real quick. Louisiana is one of the largest commercial fisheries in the country. And a big part of this commercial fishery is the pogie fishing population. And you guys might not know what pogies are either, and I was a little bit confused on it as well. Pogies are basically these bait fish, and these bait fish can be netted. Well, they are netted. Basically, 100% of the time they're netted. And they're used for a whole range of different things. They're used for fertilizer, bait, omega-3 fats for, you get like omega-3 pills, the fats that are in those, things like that is what these are used for. And the issue that was happening is these netting boats, these pogie fishing boats, would be driving really, really close to shore, and they'd be dropping their nets, dragging across the bottom, kind of ruining habitat for larger game fish, redfish, things like that. So they would drag their nets across the bottom. They'd catch, hundreds of thousands of these pogies, and then their nets would either break, they'd rip, there'd be abandonment of the nets, and basically kill a bunch of these fish, and then they would just wash up on shore. They'd be floating around near shore. Boaters would be running into them. You'd see them on the beaches. It would ruin habitat, like I said. It would fishermen would see them while they're fishing. It just causes a mess. So they enacted this new no fishing buffer, which basically in every single part of Louisiana, you have to fish no closer than a half mile away from the shore. All right, so that is the rule. That's the rule, is that you can't fish closer than a half mile to shore, and in some areas it's up to 3 miles away from shore. So you got to be at least 3 miles away from shore in some areas, but most areas, half mile buffer. And how the heck is this gonna, you'd think that fish would just still keep washing off. Well, 1 million fewer pogies were spilled in the 2024 season compared to the annual average based on the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries data. So it's working. I mean, this new law is working, and less of these pogies are being spilled, first off. Second off, less people are seeing them. It's less of an eyesore. Beachgoers, fishermen, boaters, they're not seeing these things, so it's very, very good. Less waste, and I'm not sure exactly why that is occurring. Are nets ripping less because they're dragging off the bottom less? What's the deal? But it could be just the simple fact that you are still losing these, but those bigger fish that are out there further can then feed on those dead pogies and fatten themselves up, and it's not going to just wash up on shore and just rot on shore. It's going to be consumed, reused, recycled back into the landscape. All good things. And also worth noting that the annual harvest hasn't seen a dip. So this is like a win-win situation. There's no negative impact to the annual harvest, and there's a positive impact to the optics of the whole situation. So, that's that. Next, I want to talk about Oregon's Menam River Wildlife Area. So, the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation just put in a ton of hard work, and I talked about them last episode, but they just put in a ton of hard work to add another 1,073 acres and expand the MRWA Menam River Wildlife Area, expand it to 16,646 acres. So this addition links the MRWA with 2.5 million acres of adjoining public land at the confluence of the Menam and Wallowa rivers, and makes that entire 52-mile length, it now has continuous public access. So the whole entire river surrounded by public land, keeping the riverbanks wild and undeveloped and ensuring high water quality. I've talked about this before. I'm going to say it again. 20% of all fresh water comes from federally protected land. So having that federally protected land undeveloped, first and foremost, and managed for high water quality where there's enough vegetation, there's a solid bank on these rivers, keeps that water clean, good for us to drink, all good things. Now, this river specifically supplies vital spawning, rearing, and migration habitat for the Snake River spring and summer run Chinook salmon, which are state and federally threatened, the Snake River Basin steelhead, which are federally threatened, the Grand Ronde bull trout, which are federally threatened, and the Pacific lamprey, which are state sensitive. So all of these fish are on some sort of list, so you got to make sure that you're protecting them, and this acquisition does just that. This acquisition also provides crucial elk, mule deer, whitetail, moose, and bear, and all of those species key migration routes to their winter ranges. That's what I was saying about the 2.5 million acres of adjoining public land. All that public land kind of funnels right through this valley and provides key habitat for these animals to make it to their wintering ranges so that they're not starving during those heavier winters. And when Oregon gets a lot of snow, a lot of rainfall, so whenever there might be a bad, heavy winter, they have that key migration route to get to where they need to go. And last but not least on the docket, we have the right to hunt and fish in Florida. And Florida residents, this is really just for Florida residents, okay? But I think it's still important and worth talking about because this could be coming to a state near you. I know a lot of states are trying to push this out. A lot of hunters and anglers in various states are trying to push this out. But what I'm talking about right now, you might think the right to hunt and fish, it sounds like something made up. But it's not. A lot of states have this law in place that makes it a amendment that you have the right to hunt and fish, to provide for yourself, to provide your food, to provide deer, to provide fish for your family. So Florida residents, vote yes to Amendment 2 on the ballot this November. It's a proposed amendment to make it a legal right to hunt and fish in Florida, and I'm going to get into what that exactly means. So if you are a sportsman and woman, doesn't want to see animal rights extremists strip your access to your food, need to make sure you take action. Essentially what this amendment's going to do is it's going to make sure that all of the laws that are in place right now are going to stay in place, and you can't change anything for political reasons or for voting. You can't vote on this kind of crap. Like, you can't, like exactly what Colorado's doing, trying to ban mountain lion hunting. If they had this amendment in place, it is my understanding, I could be wrong, but it's my understanding that you would not be able to tamper with that season. It's all going to be science-based. So that's kind of the issue that's going on right now. But I do want to mention that, with this election coming up, with everything that's on the ballot in Colorado, in Florida, now with this new amendment, you got to make sure you get out there and vote. I feel like a lot of sportsmen and women may not even be registered, or, gun owners, they may not be registered. People that care about this sort of stuff may not even be registered to vote. And even if they are registered to vote, they may not even make it to the polling place. So there are around like 10 million gun owners and hunting license holders that weren't even registered last election cycle. So make sure that you're registered to vote. Make sure your voice is being heard. That's a lot of people. 10 million people, that's a lot of people. You can get a lot passed with 10 million more votes. And this was very apparent, like I said, in the recent Colorado introduction of wolves into Colorado. That bill passed 51 to 49%. I think it was like less than 100,000 votes away from getting rejected and them not moving forward with that initiative, which has, by the way, been a complete failure up until this point. So, and I think that there was like a study done, or there was something from Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management, where they found that the vote got passed by a margin of less than 100,000. Well, there were like 250,000 hunters and anglers that did not vote or were not registered to vote. So that is unfortunate, because, say those people do go out there and vote, we'd be talking about a completely different thing. That probably wouldn't have passed. And then they may not have even brought this new mountain lion initiative to the forefront if that wouldn't have passed, because they might not have thought it to be worth the fight. So a lot of things going on. If you want to ensure the hunting heritage that you have today, make sure that you have access to that for the rest of your life, for your children's life, for your grandchildren's life. Make sure to make your voice heard. It's the most American thing that we can possibly do, is to just go out there and just vote. You don't even have to tell anyone what you're voting for. It's private information, but just make sure that you do it. Okay? Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and make sure to keep it wild.